What is up, everybody? I am Macer, and today we'll be making a follow-up video from my last Warframe Steam Deck review. The video comes from a comment saying that I should test it on Orb Vallis since it's one of the more demanding open world settings out there, and got me thinking, why not make a video testing all three open worlds so we can have a more comprehensive look on how the Steam Deck actually performs. One thing that I should mention though is that there were two instances when I first boot up the Steam Deck, and on a different occasion I went to Orb Vallis, and the second one I went to the Plains of Eidolon, where the frames per second dropped to 30, with the lowest frame rates up to 20. This was with no enemies nearby and no effects from skills. I tried leaving the mission, and when I came back to test it again, I got the mission with the higher FPS. I tried replicating it by rebooting the Steam Deck, launching Warframe, and directly going to the Plains of Eidolon and to the Orb, but it never happened again, so I couldn't get it on video. First up, we have the Plains of Eidolon. Like the last video, it runs pretty much like how I described it. It runs between 60 to 70 frames per second, with dips going to low 50s. With more enemies and effects on the screen, the more inconsistent the frames get. But all in all, it's still a very good experience. Next up, we have the Cambion Drift in Deimos. For the most part, the frames I got was average around 55 frames per second. I originally suspected the deck to perform the worst in the Cambion Drift out of all the three, considering how dense this open world really is. The Cambion Drift, however, has some important takeaways that you need to consider. Although it averages 55 frames per second, it never really goes down below 50 frames. The next one is that average only happens when you're out on the surface, in its dense undergrowth. The moment you go inside tunnels, the frames usually spikes up, averaging 70 frames and sometimes even up to 90 frames per second. The last one is the Orb Vallis open world. The Orb is quite interesting because the lowest frames per second I saw was around 47 frames per second. With that being said, it averages almost the same as the Plains, which is around 60 to 70 frames per second. Also, like the Cambion Drift, Orb Vallis has its own structures where you can go inside. Once you're inside, its FPS shoots up, averaging around 70 to 80 frames per second, with the lowest frames I saw was around 60 and the highest was hitting max 90. With all three open world tested, I can conclude that the frames are still all over the place, but nowhere near it being unplayable. Although there were two instances when I first entered Orb Vallis and Plains of Eidolon directly after booting up the deck and Warframe, where I got 30 frames per second, with frequent dips to 20s and where I didn't have a great time playing. Although it never happened again and was instantly fixed as soon as I left the mission and re-entered them both. All in all, the Steam Deck can still handle open worlds of Warframe pretty well, and I would still recommend playing it on the deck. And there you have it, the performance of the open worlds of Warframe on the Steam Deck. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more Steam Deck performance reviews, please like and subscribe to get updates and follow-ups. Once again, I am Macer, and I'll see you again on my next video.